All right, welcome to Ruben Jay Tonight. My name, of course, is Ruben Jay, and today we are going to talk about, the election, the Democrats, the caucuses, and the fails of the Democratic Party. And, of course, we're also going to talk about Apple being fined and a couple other things. This is a test episode, so welcome. Again, this is the Ruben Jay Tonight. It's a test episode, test podcast that we are testing here from multimediamouth.com. So please come and join me. We got so many things to talk about here on Ruben Jay Tonight. Let's jump into it. All right, Andrew Yang dropped out of the 2020 presidential race yesterday in what is being considered as not a memorable move, or not a surprising move, but definitely something that I wasn't expecting as quickly as it happened. I mean, I expected Andrew Yang to eventually drop out. I mean, he was doing terrible in the polls, doing terrible in the caucuses, doing terrible in general. I mean, the fact that he was able to even get on debate stages and get as much momentum as he has and as much media coverage as he's gotten has been surprising to me. But what's more importantly is, he never had a chance of winning. He never had the chance to win. He never had the chance to become the Democratic nominee. He was going to just take up space on the stage of people like Mike Bloomberg, who might actually have a chance of winning the Democratic nomination. I'm kidding, by the way. This podcast today is brought to you by Mike Bloomberg for president. And all that means is that Mike Bloomberg has been overwhelmingly owning the television and internet space, everything that's been possibly that you can possibly see an advertisement on. Mike Bloomberg has purchased that spot. But let's go talk about Andrew Yang. So yesterday, during the New Hampshire primary, Andrew Yang announced that he was dropping out of the race officially, stating that he's a numbers guy, which is true. He is a numbers guy, and he did something that even Joe Bidenn won't do at this point, which is, get out of the way for other potential Democrats. Andrew Yang said, "I'm a numbers guy." He told the Washington Post, "In these upcoming states, I'm not going to be at a threshold where I get delegates, which makes sticking around not necessarily helpful or productive in terms of furthering the goal of this campaign." He later went on and said, if I become persuaded that there's a particular candidate that gives us a superior chance of beating Donald Trump, and I think it's important to make that opinion known, then I would consider it for sure as far as if he would endorse a certain candidate or not. So basically, at this point, what we have Andrew Yang, who at this point, he knows that his campaign has no viability. His campaign has no potential to actually win the race, and he is going ahead and he's dropping out. And hopefully at some point, he will say to his supporters, hey, you know what, going back so-and-so, going back Mike Bloomberg, going back Joe Biden. These are the people who actually have the chance of winning the nomination. I'm not saying that Mike Bloomberg has the chance to win the nomination, but he did add that he said that one of the reasons why he's dropping out is because he doesn't want to be Elizabeth Warren, who is taking money from people to run a campaign that has no chance of winning, even though Elizabeth Warren probably has a better chance than he does at this point. Yang said, "I'm not someone who wants to take people's donations, support, and time and dedication if I don't think I have a chance to win or advance our goals in the right direction." So, which is important to know, because yes, if you are a candidate who doesn't have the viability, you should step out of the way. You should become somebody who isn't necessarily going to be a hindrance to that platform, which is why when John Kasich stood in the way of Donald Trump, or attempted to stand in the way of Donald Trump, it became more of a nuisance and a sidestep that Trump didn't need to take to actually get the nomination, because in reality, all it did was prolong the fact that Trump was going to become nominated. And at this point, I don't know who is going to be nominated on the left. I really don't. I think it's really up to the people. I mean, there's a lot. This is anybody's game to win in one aspect, but the numbers say something different. And Andrew Yang stepping out of the way is the best thing he could have done, because now he becomes more efficient as a non-candidate campaigner for somebody else's campaign. He can go out there and he can get someone else's message out for them, and really drive home the point that they're trying to make, in opposition to trying to take away the momentum or whatever momentum there is for other candidates to try to get that nomination. Andrew Yang was most famous for his quote unquote freedom dividend, which was him giving $1,000 a month, or the government giving $1,000 a month to every U.S. citizen, I believe 16 years or older, to help. Which, part of me is like, yeah, you know what? I wouldn't mind having an extra $1,000 a month. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't say no to the $1,000 a month being deposited into my bank account. However, what I don't like is the fact that it's going to lead to increase in taxes. It's going to lead to inflation. Having an extra $1,000 a month naturally makes sense. If you go out and you earn $1,000 a month and reinvest it in the economy, yeah, that makes sense. But just handing somebody $1,000 every month is going to make everything else much more expensive. Cost of living is going to rise. $1,000 isn't going to actually help anybody in that term, in that point in time. So Andrew Yang stepping aside. I won't be surprised if we see him run in 2024. Now, somebody who should take Andrew Yang's lead and drop out of the race is Joe Bidenn. Joe Biden has become somebody who he doesn't have a chance to win the election if somebody handed him the victory. I mean, he has no chance whatsoever to win this Democratic nomination. He has said on multiple occasions that Joe Biden said, I am the guy who can beat Donald Trump. I am the guy who is the most electable. I am the guy who can go toe-to-toe with Trump, yet he isn't even able to win a freaking caucus. So Joe Biden hasn't even been able to get, win the endorsement of President Obama. So you know what, Joe, don't tell me that you're the guy to beat when you're the guy, who can't even, who isn't, your hands aren't up, man. You're not even defending yourself at this point. Joe Biden left New Hampshire early yesterday, I believe, to go to South Carolina and say that he wasn't going to waste his time in New Hampshire because he had no chance of winning. Which part of me is like, okay, yeah, that's smart. If you were going to go to someplace like Nevada and go and go for a smaller state, but just to go, I don't think Joe Biden really wants this. I think he wanted to try. And, Ben Shapiro always would say often that Joe Biden's first day in the race would be his best day. And that's proven to be accurate when it came to Joe Biden. So at this point, Joe Biden sticking around is doing more harm for everybody than it is helping. If Joe Biden would step aside and campaign for somebody like Mike Bloomberg, who really has a chance, and I'm joking about Mike Bloomberg. I don't think Mike Bloomberg has a chance at all either. This podcast is brought to you by Mike Bloomberg for President 2020. So if Biden would do the Andrew Yang and step aside and say, hey, you know what, Mayor Pete, let me get my 10 people to follow you. And give you a little bit of a boost, or hey, you know what, Elizabeth Warren, how about you and I? How about I sniff your hair, Elizabeth Warren, and you and I team up, and we can get you nominated. Joe Biden at this point, he's just in the way. He's gone on. There was a couple days ago, someone asked him a question, and he called his supporter. It wasn't somebody else's supporter. It wasn't like a Trump supporter. Called his supporter a lying, dog-faced pony soldier, which apparently is from a John Wayne movie or something, but I really don't know. And then yesterday there's footage of him yelling at a reporter saying, get that microphone out of my face. He said, don't point that in my face, which is, in one aspect, it's hilarious to see. And the other aspect, it's sad to see, because it's sad to see Joe Biden suffering the way that he is. And I really feel bad for Joe. Because Joe Biden, he started off with a lot of potential, especially if he would have been able to get Obama's endorsement, but he wasn't able to. He wasn't even able to get Obama's endorsement. The guy that he worked for won't even endorse him. So, what does that tell you as far as, what type of leverage he really has, and he's going off on these tangents that just make him seem really old and outdated and out of touch, and somebody who isn't really in line with what you want your president to potentially be. At this point, Joe Biden isn't somebody who I would trust to even dog sit or babysit for me. He's really showing a lot of signs of like not really being all there and all together. And for somebody who, wants to be the face of the Democratic Party, which is the opposition to Trump, he really doesn't have the mindset at this point to even really be saying that. So let's jump into something real quick. But before we do, to the 17 of you who are watching this right now, make sure to head over to iTunes. Go to iTunes. Go to Apple Podcast, and subscribe to this. Google Play Store. This will be up on iHeartRadio and all the other fun places where all of these podcasts can be found. This version. If you're watching this on Facebook, I'm talking to you, Facebook people. If you're watching this live, this is the only place that you're going to get it where there won't be all that many commercials. If you watch it on YouTube later, or you watch the clips on YouTube, there'll probably be ads. And if you download this via Apple Podcast or Google Play or iHeartRadio or Spotify, which is where this will end up eventually, there will be ads to support the show and help move forward the message. So but before we do that, the best way to help the show and show that if this is a viable podcast is to share the video. Share it with a friend, share it with some people, let them know that, hey, you know what, whether you're for Trump or against Trump or whatever, this guy, me, has things to say and you might want to listen to it. So share this video, like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube, and head over to multimediamouth.com. They are our partners. They are helping us do all this stuff, helping us keep the lights on. So let's talk about the Iowa caucus and the dumpster fire that was. I mean, honestly, I'm straight up honest to the big man upstairs. The Iowa caucus was a disaster from the beginning, an absolute disaster. There is no excuse, none whatsoever, as to why the Iowa caucus was so bad. Here are the results of that. Pete Buttigieg finally got the largest delegates counts. He got 26.2% of the votes, 13 delegates for him, with Bernie Sanders getting 26.1% of the votes and 12 delegates. Joe Biden getting 15.8% of the votes and only 6 delegates, where Andrew Yang got 1% of the vote and no delegates. But New Hampshire was just the other day. Bernie Sanders getting 25.8% and 9 delegates. Pete Buttigieg getting 24.5% of the votes and 9 delegates. Tom Steyer. Who's Tom Steyer? Joe Biden, 8.4% of the votes, 0 delegates. Elizabeth Warren gets 9.2% of the votes and 0 delegates whatsoever. A special thanks to Julia for doing the research for me on this one. Here's a couple things to look into going into the Nevada Democratic primary polls. Sanders leads the poll at 23%. Buttigieg, who's been doing a really great job so far in the primaries and in all the caucuses, is at 8.7%. And that's according to 538 as of this morning. Real Clear Politics has Joe Biden at 21%, Sanders at 17%, and Buttigieg at 7%. Yang actually has 4% of the votes, and Gabbard apparently is in here. She's got 4% of the votes. Yikes! Who are the? I mean, I'm not going to get into it. All right, let's talk. Apple. Apple being fined by France for $27 million for intentionally slowing down their iPhones. According to Business Insider, France, they have fined Apple $27 million. And what ends up being about what they make in about 3 hours as a company. So not really, it's really a slap on the wrist, if that, for Apple. Apple not really having to it's a win for them in one aspect because it's just $27 million for them, which is literally nothing, but it's just bad PR. I believe here in the US they have lawsuits that have been filed against them for this. So Apple being fined in France bodes good for consumers here in the United States as well, that maybe they will be able to get some sort of results and reparations for Apple slowing down their phones without telling them. I think Apple's explanation made sense to me, that they wanted to prolong the life of the phone, because when you update software and you make phones faster, but you don't update the battery will die or be overpowered and become to the point where it's not a viable phone. It makes sense for people to be upset at Apple for doing this, but what it just sucks that there isn't a way for consumers to say, oh yeah, I just updated my phone, but you know I gotta update my battery now. There's no place for people to go buy an Apple battery and get one installed. In fact, they make it incredibly difficult to do so. So Apple does need to do something about that. Tim Apple, as the president calls you, Tim Apple, let me give you some advice. Open up the devices, let people update them and upgrade them and build them and add memory to them and add a new battery when they update their storage. Let them do that stuff because that's what we want. We don't want, I mean, I change my phone in every year, you know, because it's easy now, but also because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I know that if I don't update my phone with my software, because every year you guys releases a new an upgraded software as well, I know that my phone's going to slow down and not be as fast, and you know, and I'll become frustrated and eventually throw it out the window. So I'll have to buy a new phone either way. So, but I think it would be good if you're like, you know what, you know, we'll release, you know, an updated battery every year for like $30 that you can, you know, a DIY kit where you can open up the phone and, you know, we'll show you how to do it. But again, that cuts into your profit, your overall profit margin as far as, you know, not being able to make money off your phones. But what it does is create, you know, extended brand loyalty. So that's my advice for Tim Apple. Again, as the president calls him, Tim Apple. But that's all I have for you guys today. Short episode. As we develop the show will probably grow and become a little bit longer. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and let me know what you want to hear me talk about. I'll probably that's embarrassing. That makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing. That's a straighten your tie moment, as Wade Keller would say. Straighten your ear pods. Again, my name is Ruben Jay. This is Ruben Jay Tonight, the premier place for your election 2020 news, as well as business and tech, all that and more. Make sure to join me. I believe I'll be live next Tuesday night as opposed to next Wednesday night. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be live all next week. Who knows? Follow me on Twitter at @TheRubenJ, on Instagram at @TheRubenJ, and go to multimediamouth.com. Share this video with your friends. Let's do this. I am signing off.